Operation Carthage, The Tragedy of Good Intentions, Part 1 of 5. Copenhagen, March 1945. The Third Reich is dying. In Berlin, the Soviet artillery is inching closer to the bunker. In the west, the Allies are crossing the Rhine. But in Denmark, the war is not ending, it is tightening. While the Wehrmacht crumbles on the front lines, the Gestapo in Copenhagen is operating with terrifying efficiency. Their headquarters is a fortress of concrete and steel in the heart of the city, the Shellhus. Once the corporate offices of Shell Oil, it has been transformed into the nerve center of the Nazi occupation. Inside, the machinery of terror hums. On the lower floors, clerks meticulously catalog the names of resistance fighters. In the interrogation rooms, men and women are broken. And in the attic, directly under the roof, the Gestapo has installed their human shields. 26 key members of the Danish Resistance imprisoned there specifically to prevent an Allied air raid. The Germans believe they are untouchable. They believe the British will never risk killing their own allies to destroy a building. They are wrong. The calculus of sacrifice. Ole Lippmann, the leader of the Danish Resistance, faces an impossible equation. The Gestapo is days away from rolling up the entire underground network. If the archives in the Shellhus are not destroyed, thousands will be arrested and executed. The resistance will be decapitated before liberation ever arrives. Lippmann sends a telegram to London. It is the death warrant for his own friends. The message is simple, brutal, and devoid of sentiment. Bomb the Shellhus. Destroy the archives. We accept the risk to the prisoners in the attic. It is the ultimate moral dilemma of war. To save the resistance, they must bomb the very men leading it. RAF Fursfield, England. The planning. The request lands on the desk of the Royal Air Force. At first, they refuse. The target is suicide. The Shellhus is located in a densely populated city center. To hit it without flattening the surrounding neighborhood requires a level of precision that heavy bombers like the Lancaster cannot achieve. The job falls to number 140 wing. Their weapon is the Havilland Mosquito, the wooden wonder. It is fast, agile, and capable of carrying a massive payload at treetop level. The plan is drawn up. Operation Carthage. It will be a low-level strike. Ultra-low. To avoid German radar, the pilots will have to fly across the North Sea at 10 feet above the waves. They will enter Copenhagen at rooftop height, navigating by street signs and landmarks. They must drop their bombs into the lower floors of the Shellhus at a shallow angle, hoping to blow out the base of the building while leaving the attic and the prisoners intact. It is a mission that demands surgical precision. There is no margin for error. If a pilot flinches, if a wing tips a chimney, if a bomb releases a fraction of a second late, civilians will die. The briefing, March 21st. Morning breaks over Norfolk. The pilots of 21 Squadron, 464 Squadron RAFF, and 487 Squadron RNZF gather in the briefing room. The mood is tense. They are shown the scale model of Copenhagen. They memorize the route, the lake, the railway yard, the cathedral. Wing Commander Peter Clabo will lead the first wave. His navigator, Flying Officer Hall, will guide them in. They are the tip of the spear. "Gentlemen," the briefing officer says, pointing to the Shellhus, "this is the house of the Gestapo. We are going to knock it down. But remember, there are friends in the roof. Your aim must be perfect." The engines roar to life. 18 Mosquitoes taxied to the runway, accompanied by 2 camera planes to record the damage and 30 Mustang fighters for cover. They lift off into the gray sky, turning east toward the North Sea. They are flying toward a victory that will save the Danish Resistance. They are also flying toward a tragedy that will haunt Denmark for a century. The Wave Top Run. Operation Carthage, Part 2 of 5. The North Sea, March 21, 1945, 10 a.m. The formation hits the deck. To stay under the German radar net, the 18 Mosquitoes drop to 50 feet above the water. The sea is a blur of gray steel beneath their wings. Salt spray dries on the windshields. The pilots are flying on pure adrenaline and dead reckoning. At 300 miles per hour, a single twitch of the stick means death. Radio silence is absolute. There can be no warning, no chatter, no mistakes. As they approach the Danish coast, the land rises to meet them. They do not climb. Instead, they hug the terrain, hopping over hedgerows and frightening livestock in the fields. They are ghosts, moving too fast for the German anti-aircraft gunners to track. The city of spires, Copenhagen, appears on the horizon. The city is peaceful, unaware that devastation is approaching at 350 miles per hour. The first wave, led by Wing Commander Peter Klebo in Mosquito T. Tommy, lines up the approach. They navigate by the city's landmarks, the lakes, the rail yards. The Shellhus stands waiting, a dark block of authority in the center of the city. Inside the Shellhus attic, the resistance prisoners hear a low hum. It grows into a roar. They know what it is. The RAF has come. They brace themselves against the walls, praying that the pilot's aim is true, that the bombs will hit the archives below and not the roof above. The first strike, 11:11 a.m. The first wave screams over the rooftops. They are so low that office workers in nearby buildings can see the pilots' faces. The surprise is total. The German flak guns are silent until it is too late. Klebo's wingman releases his bombs. They skip off the pavement like stones on a pond and slam into the base of the Shellhus. Crack! Boom! The bottom floors erupt. The archives explode into flames. The building shudders. In the attic, the prisoners are thrown to the floor. The roof holds. The plan is working. The surgical strike is succeeding. But tragedy is often a matter of inches. As Wing Commander Klebo makes his run, his Mosquito clips a 30-meter light tower in the railway yard near the target. The impact shears off part of the wing. The aircraft shudders violently. Klebo fights the controls, but the plane is mortally wounded. It is heavy with fuel and speed. It cannot recover. The Mosquito cartwheels through the air, losing altitude, spiraling away from the Shellhus. It does not crash into a field. It does not crash into the harbor. It crashes into the Jeanne d'Arc School, the French school on Fredericksburg Alley, just 1 mile from the target. The pillar of smoke. The school is full. 482 children and nuns are inside. The Mosquito explodes on impact. A massive fireball erupts, engulfing the school in flames and black smoke. To the second and third waves of bombers approaching the city seconds later, the picture is confusing. They see the Shellhus burning, but they also see a massive plume of smoke rising from the French school. In the chaos of combat, at 300 miles per hour, with flak now bursting around them, the pilots of the later waves make a horrific assumption. They believe the smoke from the school marks the target. They think the first wave has already hit it, and they are trained to bomb where the smoke is. One by one, the Mosquitoes of the second and third waves adjust their course. They turn away from the Gestapo headquarters. They line up on the burning school.
The Sky Falls, Operation Carthage, Part 3 of 5. The Confusion, 11:13 a.m. The air over Copenhagen is thick with smoke, flak, and the roar of Merlin engines. The pilots of the second wave, coming in low and fast, see the pillar of black smoke rising from the crash site of Wing Commander Klebo's Mosquito. From the air, at 300 miles per hour, smoke marks the target. It is the universal sign of a successful first strike. The pilots believe the Gestapo headquarters is burning. They do not know it is a Catholic school. "Target ahead," a navigator calls out. The bomb bay doors open. 4 mosquitoes from the second wave align their sights on the burning Jeanne d'Arc school. They release their payloads. The inferno. The bombs tear through the roof of the school. Inside, the morning classes had just resumed. In the basement, dozens of children were sheltering, believing they were safe from the air raid. The explosions are catastrophic. The brick walls of the school blow out. The upper floors collapse downward, pancaking into the classrooms and the basement. In an instant, the school is transformed from a sanctuary of learning into a tomb of rubble and dust. Nuns, teachers, and children are buried alive. The screams are silenced by the crashing timber. On the street outside, parents who had watched the planes come in realize with horror what has just happened. They run toward the flames, clawing at the bricks with their bare hands. The Shellhus, the intended target. A mile away, the chaos is different. Some pilots from the second and third waves, those who recognized the mistake or had better visibility, continue to the actual target. They pound the Shellhus. The building is being gutted. The bottom floors, where the Gestapo archives are kept, are an inferno. The structural integrity of the building is failing. The attic. In the attic prison, the world is ending. The human shields, the resistance leaders, are caught between the fire below and the RAF above. The walls are shaking, smoke is filling the cells. But the RAF's precision, for those who hit the right building, is miraculous. The bombs have blown out the lower supports, but the roof is momentarily intact. The building is not collapsing on them, it is collapsing under them. One prisoner, a resistance fighter named Paul Brune, realizes this is their only chance. The explosion has blown the door to his cell off its hinges. He stumbles into the corridor. He finds a dead Gestapo officer. He grabs the keys. Get out now," he screams to the others. The prisoners, coughing in the acrid smoke, scramble toward the stairwell. The stairs are gone, destroyed by the bombs. They are trapped on a burning island in the sky. Then they see it. A pillar has fallen, creating a precarious bridge across the chasm of fire to a lower section of the building that is still standing. It is a walk through hell. Beneath them, the Gestapo headquarters is a furnace. Above them, mosquitoes are still strafing the streets. One by one, the prisoners crawl across the debris. They are escaping the unescapable. The two scenes. At 11:20 a.m., Copenhagen is a tale of two disasters. At the Shellhus, the British have successfully destroyed the Nazi records, and resistance fighters are miraculously crawling out of the ruins. It is a tactical triumph. At the French school, hundreds of children are suffocating under tons of brick. It is a humanitarian nightmare. The pilots turn back toward England, most of them believing they have struck a blow for freedom. They do not yet know that they have just executed the worst civilian tragedy in Danish history.
The Ashes of Victory, Operation Carthage, Part 4 of 5. Fredericksburg Alley, the digging. At the French school, the air raid sirens finally fell silent, replaced by a sound far worse, the wailing of parents. The building was a smoking mountain of rubble. The fire brigade arrived, but their hoses were useless against the depth of the debris. Fathers in business suits and mothers in aprons joined the firefighters, digging with bleeding hands. They could hear voices from beneath the bricks, children singing hymns to stay calm in the darkness. Then silence. Sister Teresa,
one of the few nuns to escape the initial blast, ran back into the ruins to pull children out. She saved 3 before the secondary collapse took her. The scene was apocalyptic. Bodies were laid out on the sidewalk, small shoes, school books covered in dust, the collateral damage of a precision war. The Shellhus, the miracle. A mile away, a different kind of drama was unfolding. The Gestapo headquarters was a hollowed-out shell, flames licking the sky. From this inferno, men were emerging. 18 of the 26 resistance prisoners managed to escape. They climbed down makeshift ropes of electrical cable, jumped from burning ledges, or simply walked out of the gaping holes in the walls. Among them was Mogens Fogh and Og Schoch, key leaders of the underground. They disappeared into the crowd, spirited away by the very resistance network the Gestapo had tried to crush. The objective was achieved. The archives were ash. The list of names the Gestapo had painstakingly compiled was gone. The resistance was saved. RAF Faresfield, the debrief. The Mosquitoes touched down in England in the early afternoon. The pilots climbed out, exhausted, their flight suits soaked in sweat. They were debriefed with whiskey and cigarettes. Target destroyed, good hits, building collapsed. They celebrated a textbook mission. It would take hours, perhaps days, for the reconnaissance photos and intelligence reports to reveal the full truth. The industrial building they had seen burning was not a factory or a warehouse. The smoke marker was not a beacon of success. When the news finally broke via Danish radio broadcasts monitored in London, the mood in the mess hall shattered. 120 dead at the Shellhus, but 125 dead at the French school. 86 of them were children. The silence. For the pilots, the victory turned to ash in their mouths. Men who had flown through a wall of flak without flinching broke down. They had flown to save lives, to liberate a nation from tyranny. Instead, they had become child killers in the eyes of the grieving mothers of Copenhagen. The complexity of the war was never crueler. The raid did save the Danish Resistance. It likely shortened the war in Denmark and saved countless adults from execution. But the price was a generation of innocence in a single school.
Here is the final part, Part 5. The smoke clears, leaving behind a city divided by relief and grief, and a memorial that stands as a warning to history. The Price of Freedom, Operation Carthage, Part 5 of 5. The Funerals, March 1945. In the days following the raid, Copenhagen was a city of ghosts. The funerals for the victims of the French school were held under gray skies. A procession of small white coffins moved through the streets, coffins light enough to be carried by a single grieving father. The resistance, the very people the raid was designed to save, watched in horror. Ole Lippmann, the man who had sent the telegram requesting the bombing, was devastated. He had asked for a surgical strike. He had received a massacre. Yet, amidst the tears, the machinery of the occupation had been broken. The strategic verdict, militarily, Operation Carthage was a resounding success. The Gestapo archives were incinerated. The comprehensive files on the Danish underground, which the Nazis had spent years compiling, were gone. The imminent wave of mass arrests was canceled because the Germans no longer knew who to arrest. The Gestapo in Denmark never recovered. They spent the remaining 6 weeks of the war trying to salvage their own operations rather than hunting the resistance. The underground army was able to reorganize, rearm, and prepare for the final liberation in May. Operation Carthage undoubtedly saved hundreds of resistance fighters from the firing squad. It allowed Denmark to end the war with a functioning government in waiting. But the ledger of war is cold.
86 children were traded for the survival of the resistance. The pilot's burden. For the RAF crews, the mission became a silent shadow. Many of the men who flew that day never spoke of it again. They were celebrated as heroes for the destruction of the Shellhus, but privately, they carried the weight of the Jeanne d'Arc school. Wing Commander Klebo, whose crash started the chain of errors, died in the impact. He never knew that his death caused the deaths of so many others. The surviving pilots returned to civilian life, haunted by the image of a school burning because of a mistake made at 300 miles per hour. The memorial. Today, on Fredericksburg, LA, the site of the French school is no longer a ruin. It is a quiet residential area, but there is a monument. It depicts a nun holding a child, looking up at the sky in terror. It stands as a permanent reminder of the day the liberators became the destroyers. At the site of the Shellhus, there is another plaque. It honors the RAF and the resistance. The two monuments, separated by a mile, tell the complete contradictory story of war. Glory and tragedy are often neighbors. Conclusion: Operation Carthage remains one of the most controversial air raids of World War II. It demonstrates the terrible friction of war, where the line between a brilliant rescue mission and a humanitarian disaster is razor thin. The raid destroyed the Gestapo. It saved the resistance, but it broke the heart of Copenhagen. As we look back, we are left with the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the cost of freedom is paid by those who are too young to understand the price. If you value this kind of deep dive history, please subscribe. It helps us keep these stories alive. Comment below. Was the raid justified? Does the saving of the resistance outweigh the tragedy at the school? I read every comment.